Welcome back to the butterfly effect. If you've been following, you know that over here we're on a mission to show that one small change can result in great transformation. So today's video is meant to spark some enlightenment. I have my laptop over here in case you see me looking to the side, because I wanted to make sure that I don't miss, any of the points that I wanted to address basically. So I have like a whole, how many pages? It's like 1,300 words basically. So I basically wrote like a kind of mini essay on it. As we all know, the coronavirus pandemic has been affecting the whole world, and it's affecting and crippling so many countries, and it basically caught the world unprepared, to be honest. Every country is kind of just struggling, figuring out how to handle it. You have countries like New Zealand who have basically overcome the pandemic. They had a total of 1,504 cases, and within 3 months they only have 27 cases that are currently active, and only 21 people have died from the virus. The country is getting back to normal. They practice social distancing and a lockdown, and everything was normal. Then you have countries like the USA, where Trump is just on a rampage. One day he's telling people to drink Lysol, another day he's talking about non-FDA approved drugs. Even countries like Canada, where they have provided palliatives. I heard that in Canada they're getting like $2,000 a month, which some people were not even earning before the pandemic. So different countries have just been doing different things, trying to handle it in different ways. And then you have countries like Nigeria, and everybody talks about Africa, how Africa is going to be one of the most dangerous zones basically, and how we're going to lag behind in handling the pandemic. But then you see within Africa as well, there are countries like Eritrea and Seychelles handling the pandemic in what seems to be quite a good way. They have a high percentage of recovery. They are really progressive in their approach. I heard in Wuhan, where they were able to get over it, now cases are reappearing. So the pandemic just has everyone running crazy. So please don't mistake anything I see in this video to mean that I expect that Nigeria is meant to have it all figured out. In reality, nobody has it all figured out. No country has it all figured out. Everybody is just figuring out what to do one step at a time basically. But I did want to just make a video to enlighten us about maybe some recommendations that we can consider if this type of thing happens again basically. So yeah, just a quick disclaimer, like every country is obviously handling it differently, and no country was prepared for this. Today is the 22nd of May. I was waiting to get closer to the 28th of May before filming this video, because on the 27th of February is when the first case was announced in Nigeria, in Lagos State. And as at today, we're up to 7,116 cases. So that's not even up to 3 months. But then I'll be sure to update the statistic in my description box and on my website whenever it is I'm going to post this video. I do hope to post this video on the 28th, so that it's like a 3-month update on how Nigeria is handling the pandemic. I need to start by commending the healthcare workers who are handling the pandemic, who are risking their lives, the Nigerians who are really doing everything they can to make sure that people are recovering, people are staying safe, people are treated well. You hear of survivors, people like Sheun Oshowobi, who runs the Stand to End Rape initiative. She had contracted COVID after she went to accept her Commonwealth award, and she shares her account. And basically one thing I really got from her account was how the healthcare workers in the isolation center were really helpful to her, and really made the place feel homely and made her feel like she could get through it. So you hear people, anytime they do share their accounts, they do tend to credit the healthcare workers. So I don't think I can start this video without giving a kudos to our healthcare workers. The other day I even heard that the National Medical Association is planning on going on strike because of how the healthcare workers have been subject to abuse by security agents when they're trying to get to work and stuff like that. So I'm gonna address that later. But what they're doing is not easy, especially even in Nigeria, where they're underpaid and underappreciated. underprotected, if I'll put it like that. So I do want to start by crediting them and commending their efforts in helping us overcome the pandemic and to handle the pandemic in the best way possible. The NCDC is the main body tasked with the responsibility for research, tracking, and enlightenment about the disease. They are the ones who if you suspect that you have the disease, you call them, they come pick you up and then take you to an isolation center where you can get the treatment that you require. And they are also the ones charged with the responsibility for keeping us informed about statistics. Where I even got the numbers about the current cases is on their website. I must commend their website. There's a great deal of transparency and efficiency on their website. You really get to see the value of their work in a sense. Like I love their website. I even think that their website is better than our Nigerian Senate website. So credit to the NCDC. They do seem like they have the right intentions, but then people have obviously complained about, they've tried to call the NCDC, they've not been able to reach them.
Let's say person just catch the disease now and the person not the cough, he don't if you breathe again, you understand? So we want to call NCDC. Say maybe we call them now, may they do test like this. See what they will say.
Please wait. Your call is being processed.
COVID-19. Okay, I will try it again. Wash. Look at it.
The only tell within now to the law.
Look, I can't.
Please note that your calls are being recorded for quality assurance purposes.
Alright, I know.
All our channels are currently engaged.
Okay.
Please hold for the next available agent.
Alright.
I don't know if he did it as jokes or if he actually meant to do it, but there are definitely some lapses in their work. But then I listened into a webinar that they participated in with the Nigerian Bar Association, and they were open and honest about the fact that they are constrained. Like, they have issues of funding, they have issues with personnel. Like, they're just one of these bodies that the federal government, I'm sure they've just been neglected. Nobody really assumed that this pandemic was coming. They've also been accused of being toothless bulldogs, because even if you violate any of their recommendations or their guidelines, there isn't really that much they can do without political engagement or political will. The truth of the matter is that is just Nigeria for you. There is really not that much you can do. Even if you're mandated legally to do stuff in this country, you need our political will to actually put things into motion. You need political power, most especially, or financial power. Even when people have complained about testing, you see that the average Nigerian is not getting tested. It is the high flyers. Like, everybody was so outraged that Davido and his 35-member crew were able to get tested, like when testing kits were actually quite scarce. So money is power and politics is power in this country, so just bear that in mind. So, like, aside from all the credits I've given, that now leads us on to discuss how our political leaders are addressing and handling the pandemic.
No food, no money, nothing. We have to stay at home. We've been home now for over a week. Nothing has been given to us. We're just home sleeping. I mean, we are tired. Do you think we have governor in Lagos State? To me, I don't know if we have governor. We have governor, we are suffering here. So more are still going to happen. More will happen. Because the government is doing nothing. They are not helping anybody. So they should expect more. It will happen. All they are doing is just to embezzle money. There's nothing like COVID in Nigeria. All these patients are talking about their malaria patients. Tell me where is the vaccine to treat them. Tell me where is the machine to detect a COVID patient. So all our others, they are only using this is just a scam. To
contain the spread of the virus, our President Muhammad Buhari, announced a 2-week lockdown twice for Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun State. So on the 29th of March was the first time we heard from the president, and he gave a pre-recorded speech that was quite bland and uninspiring. Many Nigerians were just like, is this it? Like, really?
Cases, and few these patients have been in contact with. The few confirmed cases outside Lagos and Abuja are linked to persons who have traveled from these centers.
Kept looking down at his sheet. He kept talking just so dispassionately, like, you know, even when he was saying thank you to our healthcare workers, he was looking at the speech. I'm like, can't you even thank our healthcare workers by looking up at them? Like, that at least should be off script, you know. So the speech wasn't really met with great reactions.
The systematic easing of these restrictions will be undertaken to bring life back to normalcy. The movement of foodstuffs will continue from producing areas to the markets. The markets will be better organized for the sale of foodstuffs.
Unfortunately, some 200,000 people have passed away as a result of this pandemic. We will continue to enforce land border arrival protocols as part of the containment strategy. We remain committed to establishing a solid supply chain process to ensure these heroic professionals can work safely and properly.
I think I'm losing my mind.
We can't even hear what you're saying. And then 2 weeks later, you know, it was time for his second speech, and everybody got a copy of the speech, which was leaked. I don't even know how, you know, it was leaked. So, you know, people have not really responded well to the president, and even the announcement of the lockdown wasn't really met with great reactions, especially because there was lockdown in 3 states. But then obviously we knew that the virus had spread further, because after the first announcement of the first case, you know, people were still traveling. There was still a lot of contact between people. He did announce that there would be palliative interventions for Nigerians in need, but then obviously we even know that we have an issue with data in this country, so I'm sure that the amount of Nigerians who are budgeted for are not even the true number of Nigerians who need the intervention.
And there have also been complaints about the quality of palliatives that are actually being given out. So there's just generally issues surrounding the palliatives from the federal government and also the palliatives from the state governments.
Another issue is the presidential task force, which is basically briefed with, like, you know, engaging directly with the president and, you know, announcing the measures. They have also been you know, accused of excluding some key fundamental groups like women, the disabled, excluding the youth. Like, you know, there is not one young person on that group, there is not one woman on that group, there is not one disabled person on that task force. Like, how do we know that these people are actually advising the president on what the people really need when they only represent such a limited group of people? There have also been complaints that there is no uniformity in the standard of operations, because, as I said, the president announced certain measures for 3 states, and then, you know, other states were kind of just left to their own devices. And if you understand the, like, setup of Nigeria, basically Nigeria is a federation, so I do understand that, you know, the president is going to leave some sovereignty to the state governments, but then I feel like during, like, a pandemic like this, there kind of needs to be, like, a national uniform response. Like, every isolation center needs to look like this, every case found needs to be handled in this way. I feel like there should be more of a coordinated efforts, because I'm about to move into state governors, but as you would see, different states are just reacting in different ways. States like Ogun and Oyo, they have been commended for, you know, they're really innovative strategies, like their drive-through testing. Even Lagos has been praised as well. If you drive around Lagos, you will see, like, different information just telling people, you know, to be watchful of the coronavirus pandemic. The other day I was listening to the radio, they're talking about, you know, wash your hands, do this, like that. So someone who has actually been credited for his approach. He's tweeting like every other day or every day, keeping us informed of what's happening, how many cases there are, who's getting discharged, and things like that. So, you know, different governments have been reacting in different ways. But then moving on to the negative, you have governors like Governor Ganduje of Kano, who are just like wiling out. Like, Kano is just a whole other matter. Because of religious reasons, they claim that they cannot test the corpses of people who have died. So a lot of people have died as a result of the virus, and, you know, obviously their burials are happening, the spreading is continuing, and it's just wild in Kano. You have states like my own state, Rivers State, my governor Wike has been quite proactive, maybe even a bit too proactive, because sometimes you see him on blogs, you see him on in videos literally stopping people on the road and ordering forced isolation of people who maybe just, you know, they were just on the road, they made a mistake. As simple as just giving them the information that don't do this again, go back home.
Come down, take the vehicle. Show me your ID. Sir, we came back. Okay, take him. Sir. Take him. Come back, take the vehicle. Come back. He didn't know the was locked down.
And then he did this very tragic thing of demolishing someone's hotel. Obviously that is a complete violation of the owner's right to property, because no due process was followed. The matter didn't even go to court, and you know, they did not even give the guy room to defend himself or to have an alternative, maybe pay a fine, maybe seal up the place, maybe use the place as an isolation center. He took the drastic measure of demolishing his hotel. And you know, if you know my background, you know my family, you know that my dad has actually come out to say that Wike was justified because that was an executive order. But my dad is a defense lawyer, I'm a human rights lawyer, so I'm always on the side of rights basically over defenses. You can't just make such executive orders. You know, my dad made a statement that sometimes you need strong medicine for strong problem, or for strong medicine for strong disease. And I'm like, that is too strong. I know, you know, they do say that Rivers people are stubborn and hard-headed, but I just believe that that was just too drastic. It said the federal government has not set a uniform standard that can actually be applied in each state. So that's why some governors are running mad and some governors are actually doing what they're meant to be doing and handling it in innovative, progressive ways that actually are better for the community and better for the state. I do believe that, you know, how Wike is doing it is too hard-handed, and how Ganduje is doing it in Kano is too lax. You now also have governors like,
I got no COVID. Those who wish me to have COVID, we have HIV. I'm good, hale and hearty. I challenge anybody to the boxing ring.
like, really, is that a leader? Like, that's jokes to me. Like, that is not a leader. That isn't somebody that I would queue to press my thumb down on. How can you swear that, oh, because people are saying you have the virus, that means that they will get HIV? Like, make it make sense. Moving on to the legislature, because our leadership system in Nigeria is split up into the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So executive are like the ones who execute the laws, the legislature are the ones who make the laws, and then the judiciary are the ones who regulate / administer the law. Lawmakers have, they are also jokes, let me put it like that. Just watch this clip
of our colleague. Like the president mentioned in our closed session, we have been able at one time or other to get in touch with her. I have been speaking with her until her illness became quite protracted. May her soul rest in peace.
But you know, aside from being jokes, aside from doing stuff like that, I've been attempting to pass a new bill called the Infectious Diseases Bill, which was also plagiarized from Singapore. If you watched my social media bill video, you would see that that was a bill that they plagiarized from Singapore as well. And then they're doing the same with the Infectious Diseases Bill. Let me read some of the provisions of the bill. Section 13 of the bill empowers the DG to detain and isolate people on suspicion of an infection, only suspicion of an infection. Section 15 empowers the minister to declare any premise an isolation center. So they can see your hotel or they can see your large mansion and decide that, you know what, I want this to be an isolation center. Like, why would you give that much power to anyone? So, you know, many have argued that our lawmakers, they should be focused on considering how to tweak the NCDC bill, which, as I said, you know, the NCDC Act because as I said, the NCDC Act doesn't really give that much power to, it gives toothless power to the NCDC, because yes, they can make regulations and they can set guidelines, but then if people violate those guidelines, the NCDC doesn't have any power to sanction violators. So moving on to the judiciary, most courts shut down as a result of the pandemic, which you can understand, makes sense because of social distancing. But then I do believe that there should have been accommodation for certain offenses. Like there's a case I was working on, a 13-year-old girl who was raped. Obviously her own matter had to be adjourned because courts were not in session at the time, and justice was basically put on hold because of this pandemic. But then you hear of cases like Funke Akindele's case, and courts suddenly opened for such a case. Obviously it was a violation of the lockdown order. I believe that the Lagos state government wanted to use her as an example, but then in the videos that you see of her case, there's no social distancing there at all. So I feel like it's a shame that justice had to be suspended, and it has also exposed the lapses in our paper and analogy based judiciary. Like, I don't know if I'm saying that well, but what I'm saying is that if we had even gotten to a virtual system in this country, then justice wouldn't have to be put on hold. You could have a Zoom call with the judge, the defense, and the claimant, and the law enforcers as well, and justice can still be served to people. So moving on to the law enforcement agents, our law enforcement agents, they were already raging before the pandemic, and then I feel like the pandemic just gave them the mandate to just run wild. Like, there have been so many reports of extrajudicial killings, so many reports of torture, abuse. Like, law enforcement agents, once you give them an inch, they take a mile in this country, really and truly. So there's just so many cases that it will be too much to address in this video. Sorry if my angle changed. My camera is overheating, so clearly I'm talking too much. But then if you're enjoying this video, please definitely give it a like and share, and please definitely leave a comment letting me know your reactions to what I'm saying, if you agree or disagree with me, and definitely if there's anything I've missed out on, please be sure to also leave a comment letting me know. But then I think I'm just gonna end up by moving on to the general public. Well-to-do Nigerians, I have obviously tried to augment the government efforts by donating. Billions have been donated, money, donating facilities, donating relief materials and things like that. Even just down to basic like communities and neighborhoods, people are doing like food banks and food drives, trying to reach out. I have loved the response from the Nigerian people. It has shown that definitely we are all trying to get through this together, and nobody is trying to leave their neighbor behind. But then kind of going back to the government, there have also been complaints about the lack of transparency, because we don't get updates about what exactly the money is being used to do, and what exactly the relief materials are being used for, and where they're going to it. Generally, Nigerians are resilient people. I recently discovered some videos about the history of Nigeria, and I do know that we will make it through the pandemic. But one thing I do feel is that this pandemic has definitely revealed, or should I even say reminded us of a lot of our lapses, our healthcare. This pandemic is making us realize again we haven't really invested in the right thing. So I feel that we need to do some restructuring in this country for sure. Me personally, I've been thinking about 2023, and I think that's the main message I want to share now, because when things like this happen, it's our leaders that we look to set the tone on how are we going to move, like how are we going to go about handling this thing. We need to take it upon ourselves to make sure that we elect better leaders into office. I hope this video has been enlightening, and I hope that it has sparked some form of transformation and change in your mind at least. Alright guys, please do like, share and subscribe, and do leave your feedback in the comment section below.
But we keep waiting on the world to change. We keep on waiting